please have a seat? We're about to restart the meeting. Can we please take a seat? We're about to restart the meeting. Can we please take a seat? We'll be starting the meeting in about 20 seconds. Can you ring the bell again, please? Can we please take a seat? We'll be starting now. Okay, we'll now be going on to item 4 of the agenda, which relates to deputation requests. It is now time for deputation. As part of the program motion, members agreed to hear 3 deputation from Mercia Road residents, Southwark Trades Union Council, and the Kirby Estate Residents Group and London Play. Can officer please bring forward the first deputation, Mercia Road resident? Oh, you're already here. Brilliant. Would the deputation spokesperson please address the meeting? You have 4 minutes.
Good evening. As the lead representative of the Mercia Road Residents Group, I'm here to express our outrage regarding the appalling state of fly tipping and rubbish on our streets. As a resident of Southwark for over 20 years, I've noticed a significant increase in the amount of litter and illegally dumped waste in our community, which not only tarnishes the aesthetic appeal of our neighbourhood, but also poses serious health and environmental hazards. To put this into context, in 2021-22, Southwark Council issued 0 fines for littering. What's more, official figures showed that Southwark is the worst council in London for fly tipping, and yet just 2% of fly tipping incidents were followed up with a fine. The unsightly heaps of rubbish on our streets not only create an eyesore, but attract vermin and rats the size of hamsters. I repeat, rats the size of hamsters, creating an unhygienic environment for both residents and visitors. It's evident that the current measures in place to address fly tipping and littering are inadequate. We therefore urge the Council to advise on immediate action to address this pressing issue. Empty words are simply not enough. Thank you.
Thank you. You have an opportunity. Hello, sir. You have an opportunity to ask the cabinet member a question. If you wish, you don't have to.
My question is, what action has been taken? Because for so long we have the newsletters, we have correspondence and communications from Southwark, and I personally feel they're just empty words. There is no action.
Can a cabinet member please respond?
First, can I thank the gentleman for joining and speaking to us today about this very important issue. Clearly, all our residents deserve to live in town centres and communities, neighbourhoods and on streets that are kept clean. And it is clearly not always the case that we manage to do that. And I'd be lying if I said otherwise. However, I don't think it's quite the negative picture that you're painting. And I want to identify a few of the things that have happened and a few things that we are in process now. So first of all, to say that last year our recycling rate was the highest in all of inner London, and this year it has risen further still. 99% of all our waste is diverted away from a landfill, and actually we're producing 5% less waste in the borough than we were 2 years ago, which then does affect that recycling rate as well. And 99.86% of our collections are happening on the scheduled date. I think those are all positives. I think we would all agree. In terms of our street space, so we have nationally agreed standards that are adopted by other councils across the country as well, and we are on target for litter, detritus and fly posting, and have been for a number of years. I'm saying that to say that I think there are a lot of positive things that we should be proud of. That's not to say there are not issues, and I'm going to talk about them now as well. So we know that graffiti, for instance, is an issue. In the last year, we've changed our approach to graffiti, and we've taken a hotspot approach. So we're looking at areas where there's a high prevalence of graffiti, blitzing them, and then coming back to stop them coming back. We've removed the charge that we used to apply to removal of graffiti on private property. That's now increased quite dramatically the number of shops and businesses that are taking up our offer. There's still plenty more to do, and often actually the difficulty is about getting hold of these businesses, but nonetheless that is something that is now improving, and I accept there is plenty more to go on that. And we're also looking at introducing plans for murals and graffiti walls to prevent the graffiti happening in the first place. You mentioned fly tipping and waste, and you mentioned enforcement specifically. So in the last year, 533 fixed penalty notices, that's charges, have been applied for waste-related offences. We are, however, looking into whether that service could be expanded further, and we can take that very seriously in our town centres and in our estates. Sometimes, actually, though, the way you deal with fly tipping is by designing it out, by kind of putting in things like benches and planters in areas that we know fly tipping are problems, and we're looking at that across the borough. So the most recent example is on Bermondsey Street, where that's gone in just in the last couple of weeks. And the final thing to say is we're really, really aware that on our estates there are some problems, particularly there's about 7 estates in the borough where the vast majority of all issues that come to me are from, 2 of which I appreciate are actually in your ward. And that's something I've been working really closely with the South Bermondsey councillors on how we can address those things. And I'd also like to reach out and offer a meeting with you and the South Bermondsey councillors to talk about the issues that you're experiencing and how we can tackle them together. So as I say, I'd be lying if I said everything was perfect. It's not perfect. I appreciate that you've come to us and you've shared your experience with this. We are doing lots of good things. We've got lots of plans for the future as well. I'm really, really happy to work with you and your local representatives in South Bermondsey to make sure those plans can be even better and we can deliver the clean, safe borough that we all want to see. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to thank the deputation for attending this evening. This officer will escort the deputation out of the public area. Can officer please bring forward the second deputation, Southwark Trades Union Council? I thank the deputation for being here. You have 4 minutes. You can split your time between yourselves. When you're ready, you can start, please.
Okay. We're a group of Southwark residents and workers who share one overriding moral commitment. We are determined to provide solidarity with the Palestinian people in the face of the murderous assault on Gaza by the Israeli state. We're here tonight because we think Southwark Council should also demonstrate solidarity with Palestine. This is something that, to its shame, the Council has so far failed to do. There's a stark contrast between the absence of support for Palestine and the degree of support given to Ukraine following Russia's invasion. The Council has not condemned Israel's actions, and the Palestinian flag is not flying over Tooley Street. What does this show about how councillors view and value Palestinian lives? Similarly, the motion on Gaza that you will be debating later is not, as I will show, a sincere or serious expression of solidarity with the Palestinians, but rather a betrayal of them. During the last 6 months, the IDF has slaughtered over 31,000 Palestinians, including 13,000 children. 70,000 Palestinians have been seriously injured. The relentless bombing of Gaza has destroyed 70% of civilian infrastructure and displaced almost 2 million people. Israel's blockade has created huge shortages of food, medicine and clean water, and there's been a surge in infectious diseases. According to the World Health Organization, thousands of people are severely malnourished in Gaza, and a catastrophic famine is imminent. Thousands more Palestinians will die when the offensive on Rafah begins. The actions of the Israeli state are war crimes, and we must do everything we can to stop them. We brought a series of demands that we think councillors should adopt to show their support for Palestine. Firstly, the reality of the situation in Gaza must be acknowledged unambiguously with absolute moral clarity. Israel is committing genocide. This must be stated publicly and condemned by councillors. Secondly, the council must call for the end of the decades-long occupation of Palestine and the oppression, the apparatus of apartheid that is an inherent part of this occupation. We also call upon the council to support the boycott and divestment and sanctions campaign against Israel. A key way of disrupting its war machine is to isolate and weaken Israel economically. The Council should call for sanctions against Israel aimed at achieving this objective. To call for a ceasefire without threatening any consequence for Israel if it continues to commit genocide is meaningless. It is as hypocritical as the US, which weeps crocodile tears for Gaza while supplying the weapons and logistical support to carry on. More concretely, the Council's pensions funds have millions of pounds of investments in companies with links to Israel. These are companies whose profits are derived from the brutal subjugation of the Palestinians. We are calling on the Council to commit to divesting itself of investments in these complicit companies immediately. Councillors should use BDS against Israel just as activists used it against apartheid-era South Africa. The Council must demand that the government stops providing arms to Israel, stops granting licenses to companies for the export of weaponry used to slaughter Palestinians. Councillors should salute and encourage those courageous activists who have taken direct action against factories producing armings for Israel. As I noted earlier, there is nothing in the motion on Gaza to be debated later that advances the cause of Palestinian liberation. There is no commitment of it, no condemnation of Israel's genocidal actions, no call for the end of the occupation, no call for sanctions, no commitment to divestment, and no call for the government to stop arming Israel. The motion is morally light-minded, and passing it will be of little consequence. We call on councillors to amend the motion, to delete the existing text, and to replace it with our demands. We believe that solidarity with Palestine is the defining moral issue of our time. We call on councillors...
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Do you have a question for the leader or relevant cabinet member?
Yes, we do have a question from the Trades Council. Will the Council agree to demand Southwark Pension Fund opens its investment portfolio to a People's and Workers' inquiry to ascertain what money goes to companies that operate in trade with Israel and to demand its disinvestment? Thank you.
Councillor Williams, just to remind you that you have 5 minutes, please. Responses should be kept as brief as possible. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Well, thank you very much for coming this evening, and as you'll know, we'll be agreeing a motion at the end that you've referred to of this meeting, setting out our cross-party position on this terrible conflict and our collective despair at the number of people whose lives have been lost and the urgent need for an end to the loss of lives in Palestine and an urgent need to have full access for aid and food and electricity and all of the goods that people need to get back to restoring their lives in Gaza. In response to your question, I am very happy to speak to you afterwards about what your specific requests are on the pension fund. Access to what the pension fund is invested in is, of course, information that's available to all of our staff who have their pensions within the fund, and I'd be more than happy to speak to you about what information you would like to see from it. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank the deputation team. If you would please follow the officer who will lead you back to your seat. Thank you very much. Can officers please bring forward the third deputation, KB Estate Residents Group and London Play. Would the deputation spokesperson please address the meeting? You have 4 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Rebecca and I'm here with Geraldine and Katie and Fiona from London Play. We are here today because our children's play park on our estate has been closed by Southwark Council since 2021. There are children on our estate aged between 5 and all the way up to 12, none of whom have had access to a safe place to play for over 3 years. Despite the park being Southwark Council's responsibility, it has never been maintained, so much so a swing snapped whilst a 5-year-old child was inside it. This was due to severe erosion on the swing brackets. The park has been left to rot, it is derelict, there are holes in the floor and it is decaying with rusted equipment. It is now beyond all repair. No ball games are allowed on our estate, so activities for the children is limited. The Kirby estate is well recognised for having high community spirit, and this is constantly affected by the lack of play space for our children. The estate had a major refurb in 2019 when approximate £2 million was spent. However, the play park was never even considered to be a part of that, regardless of our efforts to voice our concerns. As a TRA, we were told we need to apply for multiple cleaner, greener, safer grants instead. Despite being successful applicants, the money offered was still not enough to cover even a fraction of the cost to bring our park back to life. We have involved our local MP, the media and London Play, who are here to support us today. This is a Southwark Council-owned play park. It is the council's responsibility to provide a safe space for the children in this borough to play. It is the responsibility of the council to maintain our park, and we should not have to fight to get what is a basic human right for our children. Lack of a safe play space plays a huge part in our children's social, emotional and physical well-being, not to mention causing an increase in antisocial behaviour and vandalism. I'm just going to pass over to Fiona from London Play.
Hi. I'm Fiona Sutherland. I'm the director of a charity, London Play. Our vision is that every child in London has the space, time and freedom to play outside daily near to where they live. We support anyone who wants to ensure that the children in their lives can exercise their right to play. So in our recent campaign to find London's saddest playground, Kirby Estate Play Area was one of 3 playgrounds in Southwark that was put forward for the title. So I'm here today to support the Kirby Estate residents and help them make the case for their playground, but also more generally play across the borough. As Rebecca's already outlined, play is not just a nice to have thing, it's crucial for children's health and happiness. We've heard a lot about the decline in mental and physical health of children in Southwark this evening, and as members will be aware, it's so important that it's seen as a universal child's right to play. It's never been more important than it is now in the wake of the pandemic, when plenty of children were robbed of opportunities to play, and we're now seeing the toll in terms of a huge rise in mental and physical health problems among children. Play also builds communities, like food and like music. It's a universal language common to us all. Play spaces provide opportunities for people from different backgrounds to come together informally as their children play. So given those multiple benefits, we do see Southwark Council's current plan does acknowledge the importance of play, and we're happy to hear about the audit carried out of Southwark's play spaces. We acknowledge the promise to give Southwark's children the best start in life, and I think that includes, it says in the plan, providing a top quality playground in every local area, which is clearly not the case in Kirby Estate.
Thank you. Do you have a question for the leader or relevant cabinet member? Yes, please do ask.
We're just interested to know how the council's planning on delivering on the commitment to play, and how investment on play is being prioritised, and whether you're considering following the example of Lewisham, neighbouring borough, which has developed a play strategy which would help provide those answers and ensure that play on estates in Southwark gets the same attention that maybe some of the bigger parks are getting.
Relevant cabinet member, you'll have less than 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you to the residents and the representatives from London Play. So, as I alluded to earlier on in the debate, which I hope you heard, we've just conducted the first phase of a major play audit in Southwark. And this play audit is different to previous audits and reassessments of our capital programme for spending on playgrounds. It's the first time that we've looked at it as a whole council. So you make reference to good quality play spaces for every neighbourhood, and that comes about through a combination of possibilities. We have 59 playgrounds in our parks, and as the Cabinet Member responsible for parks, that's my personal responsibility for the capital programme and investment in those. You then have another 198 playgrounds and provision on our estates, and that's primarily maintained and developed through the housing HRA. But there are severe pressures on that account at the moment in terms of funding for our housing estates. And then finally, we have new play provision done through our Southwark construction and our regeneration programmes, where we can draw down external funding through other developments to ensure that we can create new and improved and additional play facilities. And then we have 4 adventure playgrounds managed directly through our youth service. But fundamentally, for residents and for parents of small children, they want to be able to have a safe place to play immediately close to their homes and allow that child to develop and evolve over time with other play provision. So the audit is now seeking to look at this in the round, and colleagues of mine, Councillor Mills, mentioned the importance of making sure that play is gender balanced and opportunities for older children and young girls in particular. So in essence, in relation to your situation, given the pressures on the housing revenue account, we do offer locally devolved funding to help improve our playgrounds. And you quite rightly applied for cleaner, greener, safer funding. And I understand that after that initial award of 10,000, you've now been awarded an additional 12. But clearly that is some way short for the estimated 30 to 50,000 that you might need for a full wholesale improvement. So usually in other locations in the borough, our local ward councillors have worked together through cleaner, greener, safer funding, and also highlighting and allocating playgrounds through SIL, which is a community infrastructure levy, but it's basically money from other developments and investments that we can invest in locally on what's important. So my recommendation to you is that there will be another SIL round, and that in conjunction with you and with your local ward councillors to make sure that that's earmarked by them locally as requiring SIL improvement. And that way we can get to the amount of money that you need to ensure that Kirby Estate has an immediate play facility for very small children in that safe environment of where they live. I would also add, in regards to the London Play's remarks around play, that we want to ensure that through things such as Streets for People and Routes to Play, if you like, that children can enjoy the wider environment safely. So the Kirby is adjacent to Southwark Park, and there's also other play provision nearby within a 5 to 10 minute walk. But I think it's around a full complement to support a child at every stage of development. So we want to work with you and your community about creating that within your neighbourhood. You mentioned the work of Lewisham and its play strategy. I'd be very keen to talk to London Play if you want to talk to us about your approach, and sitting down with you to look at collaboration on the development now that we've done this audit, which is our initial stock taking that forward. I just would also mention that obviously in our neighbourhood, our neighbour Lewisham, they have around 57 playgrounds on their estates. Sorry, they have about 41 park playgrounds, and they have 59 on their estates, giving a total of 98. But obviously here in Southwark, we have over 2.5 times that. We have 257 spaces to play. So we've got a bigger task, but we're up to it, and we feel that if we can, and we will deliver on those promises to our neighbourhoods around play spaces, we can really transform the experiences of all our children. So thank you for coming tonight.
I'd like to thank the deputation for attending this evening. Officer will escort the deputation to the public area if you wish to listen to the debate. Thank you very much. Can I please remind members of the public We're trying to get through the agenda for the evening. It's important that we're able to do so, otherwise we would not be able to hear the other parts of the evening, including all the motions. So I'll now move on to item agenda 5 on the agenda, which is relating to members' question time. We will now consider the late question from Councillor Chamberlain. Do you have a supplemental question?
I do, Mr. Mayor. It's curious reading this, that if lead members were briefed every fortnight, how the major works programme became such a scandal. We know that specific concerns were raised with the leader and with his colleagues as early as mid-2021, when a formal request was made for the council to investigate the Arica House major works programme. Yes, that's another one. Will the leader support our request for OSC to review the Arica House major works project as soon as possible, as it has done with Devon Mansions and the Canada estate?
Thank you very much for your supplementary question, Councillor Chamberlain. I'm slightly struggling with this one. As a member of the executive, it is not my role to say what OSC should and shouldn't look at, and so I'd very much look to the chair of the committee to make a decision about what should be taken by the committee.
Councillor Chamberlain, do you have a second supplemental question for the leader?
But it's increasingly clear that members of the Cabinet and the leader specifically have known full well and ignored these major works scandals for years. It's a disgrace that they are refusing to take responsibility and refusing accountability. Will the leader apologise for his specific role in this fiasco and consider if his position remains tenable?
Thank you very much for your supplementary question, Councillor Chamberlain. So I do take this extremely seriously, and I'm very clear that improving the quality of our council housing services is the #1 priority for this council, this whole council. And yes, in particular, that means improving the quality of our asset management or major works service. As you will know, we've got a number of reviews ongoing to get to the root of all of the issues that are had in the service. We will be doing that thoroughly, transparently with residents, and we'll be working with residents on each affected estate, and I will follow up on the one that you've mentioned, to make sure that we do that process with them. We are determined to make sure we have a council housing service that delivers on our residents' needs and expectations, and as a Labour administration we will ensure that we do. Thank you.
We will now be considering members' question. As per the programme motion, we have 30 minutes. I'm very keen that members keep their supplemental questions to questions rather than speeches. We will be able to get through more questions and answers during that period of time. Councillor Jane Salmon, do you have a supplemental question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do. I thank the leader for his response and repeat my gratitude for working with us to find a way forward. But I have to ask him what assurances he can give that his group will continue to take the Code of Conduct seriously, and whether he will personally hold himself responsible for any future breaches.
Thank you for your supplementary question. It is of course vital that all members of the council follow the Code of Conduct, and I would ask everyone to. The role of adjudicating if any member has not, of course, sits with the monitoring officer, and rightly so it's an independent process. But absolutely, I expect all members of my group, and indeed of the opposition, to follow the code in full.
Councillor Yusuf Hussain, do you have a supplemental question?
I do, thank you, Mr. Mayor. How is Southwark seeking to influence the government with the future Council Housing Summit?
Thank you for your supplementary question. So last week, in this room, in fact, we held the first National Council Housing Summit, filling a gap that's existed across our country. We brought together 22 of the largest council landlords in the country to come here, not to say that we in Southwark have all of the solutions, we have some, but they have others, but to flesh out the challenges we face. They were deeply grateful that Southwark had taken the leadership on this role, and there was a really clear, unanimous desire to work with us to set out a plan to fix the broken council housing settlement that we have nationally. It was quite a bleak meeting, I have to say. Councils talking about even bigger challenges than we face, some scaling back their repairs service to a bare minimum. But together we are committed to coming up with solutions that we can work with together and putting a plan on the table of government to help them fix the problem with us too. Thank you.
Councillor Emily Tester, do you have a supplemental question?
Yes, thank you. I want to thank the leader for his response, and it's really good to hear that you're making progress on your KPIs, but I know that this doesn't reflect the reality that residents are experiencing when I speak to them, and I wonder if it's a case of sort of framing the targets to get the answer that you want. Because phones are being answered, but problems still aren't being fixed. So will you apologise to residents whose repairs are still not being fixed?
Thank you very much for your supplementary question. I mean, the first thing, of course, I apologise to any resident whose repairs are not meeting the standards we would expect. I'm very clear that our repair service needs to improve. I'm very glad it is improving. We use standard metrics that the whole industry uses to measure success. We can all have our views on whether they're exactly right, but the important thing is they are moving in the right direction for residents, with satisfaction having gone up from 82% last year to 90% this year. That's the direction of travel. We do a very large number of repairs. Getting that 10% that are still where people are still not satisfied down is something we're determined to do as a council. We have an extensive plan to do it and a resident-led board to oversee the process so they can make sure that they are seeing that progress is happening. Thank you.
Councillor Betton-Roberts, do you have a supplemental question?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I thank the Cabinet member for her answer. I'm really pleased to see the Una Marston Library open, and I just want to know how that is going to add to and improve the facilities that residents have across the borough.
So it was a really proud moment to be down opening the Una Marston Library, our 6th new library in Southwark since 2010, and a fantastic community space. It offers not just the books, but a whole community space. It offers a haven for people in the local community. This week I was also in the Walworth Road Library that we opened, I think, 2 years ago now, for the Making Southwark exhibition, a fantastic example of the work that our crafting, making community is doing across the borough. Our libraries are, I firmly believe, fundamental to our borough in a Southwark, in the centre of London, in a city where people have little space in their homes, where cafes and coffee shops are eye-wateringly expensive. Having a free space to go to where you can relax, enjoy life, yes, maybe read a book, but do all sorts of other things too is fundamental for our community, and I'm deeply proud that we've opened yet another one in our borough. Councillor
Rachel Bentley, do you have a supplemental question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Thank you for the around occupational therapy waiting times. These numbers surprise me, the answer, because I've received numerous complaints recently of people who have been waiting at least 16 months following an occupational therapy referral for housing adaptations, and that the occupational therapy wait time has been considerable, and then they're waiting over a year for adaptations to housing. Will you or the appropriate officers commit to working through these particular cases with me to ensure that people are able to live in their houses comfortably, to wash and to live this life that we want to see people... sorry, I'm struggling to find words because I just find it so despairing that I have people who've not been able to shower and wash in their own homes for 2 years. Will you commit to sitting with me and the right people to get this sorted?
Thank you, Councillor Bentley. There is, in my written answer to you, a national crisis in the availability of occupational therapists. We've worked very hard in Southwark to recruit more. I'm glad to say that we've taken our vacancy rate down from 32% to 8%, and as a result, we've more than halved the waiting time for occupational therapy. Of course, there is still more to do, and we're working hard to do that. And if you've got individual cases, I'm very happy to make sure that someone looks at them with you so we can make sure they're resolved as quickly as possible. And thank you for raising the question.
Councillor Esme Hicks, do you have a supplemental question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. And I want to thank the leader for his response to my original question. My follow-up question is, alongside financial support, what other support is available to residents?
Thank you very much for your supplementary question. We all know that our residents in this borough are being hit very hard by the cost of living crisis, as people are across our whole country. And whilst the government seems to have forgotten that, and their support is drying up very rapidly, we in Southwark are still standing firm by people. We continue to have our cost of living fund, as you've mentioned and referred to. We also have one of the city's most generous council tax reduction schemes, our free school meal offer that I mentioned earlier, that is now extended for families on low incomes in our secondary schools, and indeed during the summer holidays and school holidays. We have set up our Green Energy Savers service, which is provided by Citizens Advice, helping people think how they can reduce their own bills, as well as support with school uniforms and a range of other support. And I would say if any member of our community is struggling with their finances, then please do use the community referral pathway that is available through Citizens Advice, through us as councillors and others, to get to all of that support that's right for them. Thank you.
Councillor David Watson, do you have a supplemental question?
I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. Thank the leader for his response. This Finch's Grotto Park on Sawyer Street was helpfully funded by Section 106 funding. Is there any truth to the rumour that Section 106 fundings from projects in the north of the borough will be diverted to projects and needs in the south of the borough? And what would the leader's answer be to residents who've endured the disruption from construction, noise and other issues around their houses to only not be able to benefit from the funding that they should benefit from the projects that are invested in their area? And will he commit to the £4 million worth of SIL that is sitting in the council's bank account for Borough and Bankside to be spent on projects in Borough and Bankside to the benefit of Borough and Bankside residents?
Thank you very much for your supplementary question. I'm going to just double check with my cabinet members I'm saying this. Section 106 funding is all linked to individual development, so it wouldn't be moved, it would be linked to an individual scheme in that individual area. We are currently reviewing the best approach to local community infrastructure levy, and we'll have a paper coming back to Cabinet in the early summer to set out the approach to that, making sure that we can get decisions of that money flowing into the priorities of residents in our community.
Councillor John Batson, do you have a supplemental question?
I do, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thank the leader for his answer, which is around how many different organisations will benefit from the Positive Futures Fund for young people. I suppose the ultimate beneficiary should be the young people themselves. So how does the Positive Futures Fund for young people allow the council to support young people, and specifically those from marginalised groups and those we know face the highest barriers?
Thank you very much. So we have worked closely, and I want to thank Councillor, where's she? I'd like to thank Portia behind me, who's worked very hard with our young people to make sure that we are delivering this funding in a way that really works for our whole community. We have worked to make sure we have spread across the whole borough, but also for particular groups within our community, including those with neurodiversity, our LGBTQ+ young people and others. And we worked hand in hand with members of our youth council and young people to make the decisions on how this funding is given out, so it's going to those bits of our community that need it most.
Councillor Graham New, do you have a supplemental question?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor. Leader, thank you very much for the answer to my question. I'm sure the leader's aware that adopting a plant-based diet is one of the easiest ways for an individual and an organisation to reduce their carbon footprint and their environmental impact. I wonder if the leader would like to meet with me, or perhaps the cabinet member for climate change, meet with me and a non-profit organisation like the Plant-Based Treaty or Plant-Based Councils, or even the charity the Vegan Society, so that we can all work together and lower the carbon footprint of this council. Thank you.
And thank you much for the supplementary question. So as a council, we already ensure that we provide plant-based options when we provide food. We don't have in-house catering, but when we do arrange it for events. I'm sure the cabinet member is very happy to work with any local charities of expertise in how we can encourage a greater uptake of plant-based foods in our borough, and how we can, as you say, reduce the carbon impact as a result. And I'm sure they'd be very happy, and I see nodding, to meet with any such organisation.
Councillor Joseph Henry, do you have a supplemental question?
I do, Mr. Mayor. and I'd like to thank the leader for his answer about the benefits of the residential care charter. My follow-up question is, how are we working with care homes to encourage them to sign up to the residential care charter, and how are we driving up quality of care at Tower Bridge care homes, since we had the good news that Southwark is the new care owner?
Very much. So our residential care charter is one that we have worked with Unison to adopt for our borough, and sets out care standards that mean that staff, firstly, are paid a fair wage of the London living wage, get good quality training, and family members also have more oversight of the care in the homes, as well as many other things. 6 of our largest care homes are signed up, representing 3/4 of care home staff and 80% of care home residents in our borough. I'm delighted to say that the Tower Bridge care home was covered by the charter, and we will be working to get a new provider into that home to also deliver the best quality care for our residents at Tower Bridge, the largest home in our borough, and a very important one that I'm glad we have protected by stepping in to purchase it when it looked like it would close completely and those residents would be displaced. Thank you very much.
Councillor Nick Johnson, do you have a supplemental question?
I do, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't expecting to speak, so a rare treat. I'd like to thank the leader for his response regarding decisions on a local community infrastructure levy and the £15 million residents have been patiently waiting for. We had been promised clarity on this in the spring. I understand from his response that a report is now due to be presented to Cabinet in July. 2 questions related to this. Does he know why there was such a delay? And do we know when residents can actually expect to physically see some benefit from that money if it is only going to be presented to Cabinet in July? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The details will of course be set out in the Cabinet paper, and I haven't seen the draft of that yet, so I can't give him a prelude to it. But of course we are busy spending existing awards of Community Infrastructure Levy right now across the borough to improve assets for residents across Southwark.
I thank Councillor Williams for keeping responses very brief, because it's allowed us to get quite a lot of supplemental questions in. I hope the Cabinet member for job skills and business will follow suit as well. Councillor Victor Chamberlain, do you have a supplemental question?
More than half of London's LGBTQ+ venues have closed between 2006 and 2022, including Southwark's last LGBTQ+ permanent club in 2019. So I'm a bit confused by the Cabinet member's reply about which LGBTQ+ venue he's working with. Does the Cabinet member agree with the London Night Czar that we are a truly 24-hour city? And does he have any recommendations for where we can get a bite to eat when this council finishes, or for that matter, where I could get my hair cut? Because I think we'd struggle.
I want to thank the good member for his supplemental. I want to first of all put it in some context. The nighttime plan has got 5 key themes, and these themes include the economic and social benefit of the nighttime economy, the role of the interface between governing bodies and the communities, the public realm and the public involvement, and of course public safety and of course transport. I can't answer your question directly, where would you get a haircut at 2 o'clock in the morning, but I can say we have a very sound plan. It is a dynamic plan and will be informed by responses from the business community. Our town centre plans are of course our focus, and they provide an opportunity for the business community and indeed the whole community to inform our plan and improve it from now and into the future. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Irina Ronves, do you have a supplemental question?
I do, thank you. Sorry for my voice. Thank you for the response with regard to the commercial property opposite my flat that is council owned. I'm very happy to hear that it was rebranded to the greenhouse. However, I am also a bit shocked, I have to say, that over the course of what must be more than 5 years, it has gained only £3,000 total. This is a property of the size that could easily house 2 families. So my question is, when will we see a steady stream of income from this really prime commercial property, and how many other commercial properties are there standing empty that could generate so urgently needed income for Southwark Council? Thank you.
Again, Mr. Mayor, I will keep my response brief. I think on this occasion I'll provide you with a written response, because clearly this meanwhile use is very clear, and I understand that there is some involvement with local members. I think on this occasion, what we will do is provide you with a written response. Thank you.
Councillor Susan Batcher, do you have a supplemental question?
Yes, I do. Can you explain how the establishment of living wages unit has supported signing up new living employers and the pay rise this has meant for residents? Thank you.
I want to thank the good member for your question. It does give an opportunity to give light to the achievement we've made in supporting those organisations, those companies, both and not-for-profit organisations, to become London living wage employers. We've been market leaders in this regard. In November last year, we were re-accredited as a London living wage place, okay, one of 3 London boroughs. And if there's any impact that we'll have on our local community, and that is to provide an opportunity for them for a fair day's pay, for a fair day's work. Thank you. There are, of course, an opportunity here, and I want to give light to the extremely powerful work of those who are members of the London Living Wage, indeed Southwark Living Wage steering group. And I want to give light to a few of those members, and I hope it will respond properly to your question. I want to give light, first of all, if they're still in the room, to the Better Bankside organisation, who are an exemplary example, an organisation who are dedicated to ensuring that those local workers receive a fair pay of £13.15 at least per hour. I want to give light to Borough Market, another remarkable organisation, an example of an organisation dedicated to support the local economy. Not only do they have more than 200 traders within Borough Market, but they are dedicated to ensuring that all their traders pay at least the London living wage. I want to give light to Citizens UK, another perfect example. I'll keep it brief, Chair. Another example of an organisation really absolutely upholding our values. I want to give light, of course, to another fantastic local organisation called Spring Community Hub. They were the 300th organisation in Southwark to become a London Living Wage accredited body. I want to give light to Youth Music, another example of the best in Southwark. The London College of Communication, another example of the best in Southwark. And I want to commend these organisations, encourage you, members, both opposite and indeed in my own side, to encourage local businesses to pay at least the London living wage. Thank you.
Councillor Cassandra Brown, do you have a supplemental question? Councillor Cassandra Brown? Oh, sorry, just over here. I beg your pardon. Do you have a supplemental question?
I do. Thank you. How is the Thriving High Street Fund supporting Southwark's high streets and businesses?
For your question. The Thriving High Street Fund is really important to Southwark. If there's a lesson I've learned, that if we are to grow and build resilience in our high streets, businesses must work together. The Thriving High Street Fund therefore offers an opportunity for all businesses to come together and think about what would improve their footfall in their localities. And I'm proud to say, across all of our town centres, including South Bermondsey, Elephant Castle, Woolworth, Camberwell, Peckham, are all beneficiaries of the Thriving High Street Fund. And what they are coming up with, and this is the business community, are ideas to increase footfall. It is and been a tremendous experience. And I ask you, for those members who are in the town centres, to support your local business. And if they're not thinking about how to increase footfall, please, I urge you to encourage local businesses to do the same, because working together, working collectively, is the only way in which we can ensure that Southwark remains a pinnacle economy here in London, if not here in Britain. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Darren Mills, do you have a supplemental questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your answer, Councillor Seaton. As somebody who benefited from an apprenticeship too many years ago, I just want to know, have a follow-up on how are we making sure we have a broad range of quality apprenticeships that are available to our residents?
Thank you, Councillor Mayor, and of course it's an extremely important question. If our economy is to grow, we've got to prepare residents for the jobs currently and for the future. And if there's a lesson I've learned as being a parent, and that once upon a time I had 3 children in university, and those of you will understand what I'm about to say, it was remarkably expensive. Now, apprenticeships, of course, offer a way in which employers pay you whilst you're studying. You will not end up with a debt at the end of your studies. I think that's a really important point. Second important point, apprenticeships don't only serve the young, they serve those who are slightly more mature. Okay? It is attractive not only to the mature, but also to those who are seeking higher level qualifications. Not only does it appeal to those who are acquiring high-level qualifications, it also ensures that the range of skills that we require in the borough, both technical skills, scientific skills, skills in engineering, are also included as part of our apprenticeship scheme. And lastly, if I may say so, Chair, Mr. Mayor, and I really want to get this point across. If we as a borough are to progress, apprenticeships are likely to be the way in which this progression builds in both resilience and economic vitality for the future. I've not seen an alternative, other than, of course, the Labour Party's mission to build the local economies. And, of course, the Labour Party's economy seeks to, of course, develop a series of technical colleges nationwide. That's a key part of our economic revival once we get into power. And I'm confident with the support of this entire chamber that Labour will get into power and will therefore be in a growth path for Great Britain PLC. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I would now call on Councillor Barry Algrove. Do you have a supplemental question?
I'd like to thank the Cabinet member for his reply. How do we ensure that the Southwark Pioneers Fund champions local businesses, including people starting out or from underrepresented groups?
And I want to thank the good member for your question. And I want to really point out that, of course, the Pioneers Fund is an important part of our armoury to support business founders and those who are in business who require the technical support to grow their business. This is our means by which we are supporting local businesses. And I want to emphasise, not only is the fund appealing to the young, it appeals to all of those with barriers into work. What I've been struck by is the number of women who are coming forward are real entrepreneurs, and I'm anticipating that from Southwark we're going to see women really champion business for Great Britain PLC. But I've also noted that there are innovative businesses, particularly from the African communities, who are really displaying an innovation which otherwise I would not have seen elsewhere. I've come across more recently a wonderful organisation, and those of you, well, I know there are some people here who drink, but I have occasionally have a beer. I occasionally have a beer. But I found in the centre of Peckham, Britain's first African brewery, who are benefiting from the Pioneers Fund and are growing this business. I say to you, this innovation would not happen if it wasn't supported by local authorities like Southwark, and indeed using our position as local authority to encourage financial institutions to see these businesses as being viable prospects for investment now and into the future. That's how the Pioneers Fund will benefit both Southwark and, of course, Britain as a whole. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Again, just to remind colleagues of kind of use of language to one another, I will now move on to questions to the Cabinet Member for Climate Change, Clean Air and Streets. Councillor Maggie Newens, do you have a supplemental question?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for the response to my question. And obviously, it's been massive level of engagement on Streets for People. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you plan to use this data?
Thank you, Councillor Nguyen. So as we've discussed already this evening, Streets for People engagement process has engaged over 6,000 people, from children in our schools to people coming to consultation events or indeed logging in online. It's giving us a huge amount of really tangible, concrete information about the changes people want to see on their streets, whether that's new benches, new trees, cycle lanes, crossings, low traffic neighbourhoods, whatever it could be. From that, we're then going to devise 4 maps of the borough, mapping out not what is in our borough, but what we'd like to see in our borough. And I say 4 maps because they're going to set out our walking routes, our cycling routes, our public transport routes, and our community space and infrastructure, which of course includes as well greening as well. From that, that's going to create many potential schemes that we could use, that we could implement across the borough, frankly more than we'll be able to fund. So we'll then prioritise those schemes using a range of different metrics, including air quality, car ownership, deprivation, and so on. So that's the way we're going to be doing that, and you should have a full answer on these maps and how we're going to prioritise in the autumn. Thank you, Councillor Nguyen.
Can I just remind members of the public that you are meant to please keep quiet so that we can hear each other within the debate itself. If you do want to have a side conversation with each other, you can just step outside of the room itself, have that side conversation, and then come back in, please. Okay, that comes to an end. That brings to an end the time for members' question time. We will now move to the next agenda, the next item on the agenda, which is the members' motion. We'll be debating the first motion, which is titled Back the Bakerloo Line Extension. Councillor Richard Livingstone to move motion 1. You have 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Antonine itinerary into 3. Watling Street, the Great Dover Road, Old Kent Road. For almost 2,000 years, that artery my ward has been named for has been pumping the lifeblood of our capital. The Romans marched up it, medieval pilgrims trudged the other way to Canterbury. Henry V celebrated his Agincourt victory there, martyrs were hung, drawn and quartered there. Jack Cay's rebellion and Charles II's restoration forces marched along it, the former with more decent intentions in my view. But the last 80 years of those 2,000 years have not always been kind to the Old Kent Road. Between the wars, there are enough people living in what is now my ward to make up almost an entire parliamentary constituency. And as people moved away after World War II, the shops, cinemas and other facilities went as well. The Old Kent Road hit rock bottom in the early 2000s, losing its library at the Civic Centre and literally being seen as the borough's dumping ground when the council needed a new site for its waste facility. And, of course, that decline has been mirrored by its transport. Whilst north of the river, the trams were replaced by the tube, on the Old Kent Road, we only got buses. I'm glad to say this downward slide has come to an end. In the last 6 weeks alone, I've been to the groundbreaking for new council homes at the Ledbury Estate, the topping out of the new council homes at Tustin Estate, and has shown Dutch and Belgian planners, architects and politicians around Ilderton Road so they can learn from the innovative new combined industrial and residential buildings that are being built there. Despite the challenges of the current housing market, we are now seeing a dramatic change to the area that will eventually treble the population living around the Old Kent Road and deliver, most importantly, the levels of social housing that we need there too. But we're rapidly reaching the point where the capacity of our transport system is insufficient. I'm already being told by residents they can't get onto the buses at peak times, and so we desperately need the transport solutions if we're to build more homes. We need new bus routes for the Old Kent Road as soon as possible. However, the area can only really have its needs met when we get the Bakerloo line extension, when that comes to the Old Kent Road, so that our communities, old and new, can get to work, to school, to visit friends and relatives. We have the first stage of the Bakerloo line extension well underway, with the progress of the new Elephant and Castle station box. But if we're to deliver that line, we need a commitment from whoever is elected for Mayor of London as soon as their new term starts, and we need a new government to agree that funding. We all know that we need the right mayor and a Labour government to do this, but that alone isn't enough. We also know we still need to put every pressure that we can to make sure they deliver. So I'm hoping that we can all unite this evening to do that. Please support this motion tonight.
Councillor Cassandra Brown to second motion 1. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I still remember the first time I rode the Bakerloo line. It was the day that I decided to make Southwark my home. I was travelling from Oxford Circus to Elephant and Castle, having just changed from the Victoria line. I knew instantly that the Bakerloo line was different. It wasn't like the other tubes. It had a strange smell. The seats were arranged differently, and it ended in Zone 1. Southwark Labour wants that to change, and we are committed to campaigning for the Bakerloo line extension from Elephant and Castle to Lewisham with City Hall, our fellow London councils, and the community. But why? The Bakerloo line extension just makes sense. It will be good for Southwark's economy, London's economy, and the country's economy, projected to generate 1.5 billion in economic value. It makes sense because it's in line with the Labour Party's plan to get Britain building again and to make the UK the fastest growing economy in the G7. When London's economy grows, the country's economy grows. But this Tory government is telling us it's either or, and that's simply not true. There is no levelling up agenda without London levelling up. So investing in the Bakerloo line will drive growth, jobs and investment, not just in London and the South East region, but it will also mean new opportunities for suppliers and companies around the country. It just makes sense. The Bakerloo line extension would also help the local economy of my ward in South Bermondsey, supporting plans for new homes, new businesses, and drawing much needed investment to the area. And for the residents I represent along the Old Kent Road, the Bakerloo line extension will have a positive impact on their lives. They'll benefit from vital economic infrastructure, they'll save time, and they'll have cleaner air to breathe. In fact, Southwark's plans for cleaner air and tackling the climate crisis depend on schemes like this. And how wonderful would it be that one of our flagship parks could be put on the tube map, alongside famous parks like Hyde Park Station, Regent's Park Station, and one day, Burgess Park Station. Mr. Mayor, I am proud to second this motion tonight, calling on City Hall and Government to support the Bakerloo line extension, an essential development for the future of our borough.
There is one amendment to the motion, Councillor Irina Vonvis, to move Amendment B. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Sorry, this will be Councillor Salmon in my
Okay, I beg your pardon. Councillor Salmon, please.
I will be brief, Mr. Mayor. Of course, we all support the Bakerloo line extension across the council chamber, but this council and the London Mayor need to take their responsibility for it and the subsequent failure on housing a lot more seriously. I urge the council to support our amendment.
I have 2 members so far who has indicated interest on. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Yes, Councillor Irina to second. I beg your Irina to second. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to formally second our amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. I have two members who have indicated to speak on the debate, Councillor Ellen Dennis and Councillor Renata Anvers. Are there any other members? Noted. Noted. Okay. I'll now call on Councillor Ellen Dennis to start.
Mr. Mayor, as others have said, it's incredibly exciting to see the campaign for the Bakerloo line extension really pick up momentum over the last few months, with widespread support from councils across London, from local MPs, and also from residents and the community. This proposal has actually been around for nearly 100 years, originally going to Camberwell, but it's clearly a proposal whose time has come. As my colleague Cassandra Brown mentioned, it's estimated that it could generate £1.5 billion in economic growth, and don't we desperately need that economic boost? We've got the Tories withdrawing investment from infrastructure across the country, completely ignoring London. But we here in Southwark and across London have a plan to deliver. We have already delivered £70 million to the Elephant and Castle tube upgrade, and it was fantastic to be there at the recent bottoming out ceremony for the new integrated ticket hall, a real feat of engineering, and really incredible to see what is possible there. And we've now agreed a framework for our strategic community infrastructure levy, setting aside 50% of those funds in the future to go towards the Bakerloo line extension. So we are doing the prudent thing, we are making the investment, and we are setting the path for the government to give green light to that investment in 2028. And we also are making things good in the interim. And Councillor Livingston talked about the stress that there already is on public transport and bus services there at the moment. Not only did we campaign successfully to protect our bus routes, but we have also put forward proposals for a Bakerloo bus that would support phase one, the initial phase of new development in the area, with additional infrastructure, not replacing anything like the Lib Dem amendment says, additional infrastructure. And this is, of course, about Southwark's future. We were talking about Southwark 2030 earlier today. The extension of the Bakerloo line is integral to our vision of reducing inequalities and tackling the climate emergency in a part of the borough where we have high levels of deprivation. And again, as Councillor Livingston mentioned, a part of the borough that has been consistently underserved. And yet now we are seeing progress on the Tustin estate, on the Ledbury, and our record of delivery should really be celebrated. We now have 3,333 homes either built or on site, and 51% of those homes are affordable. This is really best in class. So the Lib Dems can continue to talk us down all that they want, but our record of delivery should really be commended. And if you go to Ilderton Road, you'll see the Tustin going up, the Aldi scheme going up, the Barrett scheme going up, the investment that is being made in Bramcote Park, the new public art project that is being brought forward, the Selchip extension as well, bringing low carbon energy to homes. It is really phenomenal. And this week we had the incredible pledge from the current mayor, 40,000 council homes in London by 2030. The Bakerloo line extension can unlock many of those, and here in Southwark we are committed to playing our part. Thank you.
Councillor Renata Anvers, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Bakerloo line was first proposed to go to the Old Kent Road in 1898. That is 8 years before the Bakerloo line was opened in 1906. So it's a long time. This proposal is really a long time coming. The current proposed extension would provide 2 new stops on the Old Kent Road, serving an area which has low public transport availability, poor accessibility, and long journey times in and out of the area. This is even with this having been part of a 2,000-year-old road. The Old Kent Road corridor is an area undergoing massive regeneration, driven by this Labour council, providing much-needed housing and opportunities for business. The current Bakerloo line is underused compared to other lines, passenger numbers being less than half of the Central, Northern, Jubilee or Victoria line, probably as the current line stops short at Elephant and Castle. The Bakerloo line extension will not only give connectivity for residents of central London, it will bring residents from other parts of London into the best borough, Southwark. TfL's Elizabeth line has seen 200,000 new jobs, 171 new hotels, 2,666 new food and drink outlets, and 12 museums. Likewise, the Bakerloo line extension will be a catalyst for investment in new business in our borough. I wholeheartedly support the motion for future generations. I hope everyone in this chamber supports this motion too. Thank you.
Councillor Charlie Smith, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we know, this part of London, South East London, is very poor as far as the tube's concerned. North London, Central London, East and West London, you have tube stations and lines coming out of your ears. So we really need that extension. It would open up. I'll tell you what, we've been talking about the future, 2030. Let's say it's 2040. Millwall are top of the league. They've just reached the semi-final of the FA Cup and they're going for the double. Fans of Millwall will come out, they'll get into that local station and they'll be up to Wembley Park in about 35 minutes. Walk down Wembley Way and they'll be holding that cup like that. We won the cup. So if that's not a good enough reason for the extension, I don't know what is. So well done. Thank you.
Councillor Victoria Mills, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Now, some members will be aware that Councillor Livingston and I have a long-standing rivalry about who has the best ward, or who represents the best ward in Southwark. He has bosses, I have beauty. He has people, I've got parks. But it's a long-standing rivalry, but I confess I was a little bit misty-eyed when he spoke so affectionately of Old Kent Road this evening. What is absolutely kind of true and what does unite us is that the Bakerloo extension can absolutely bring benefits to the residents of Old Kent Road ward, but it can bring benefits to residents in my ward and in Nunhead ward and in the southern parts of the borough, and that is because of a station in Lewisham and not in Southwark. So New Cross Gate will be an absolutely crucial interchange for those people who live in Southwark but rely on Honour Oak Park, Brockley and New Cross Gate stations. So this is a plea that when we are thinking about how we bring this brilliant project to Southwark, that we are working closely with Lewisham, that we are talking about how their stations benefit our residents too, that we are thinking about the bus routes to New Cross Gate station, not just the bus routes along the Old Kent Road, and that also we are thinking about that overcrowded interchange at Canada Water and how the Bakerloo line extension gives us an opportunity to relieve and improve some of that pressure too. But absolutely supporting the motion this evening, and maybe just for tonight, Councillor Livingston, you will win on having the best ward in Southwark.
Councillor Kieran Williams, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I think a few years ago, all of us were deeply worried about the Bakerloo line when the pandemic hit and capital funding was cut by the government for Transport for London in a very political move, in a way that it wasn't done for other rail operators across the country. But I'm now relentlessly optimistic about it. We now have every council in the city, all 32 boroughs, plus the City of London backing the Bakerloo line, signed up to see it as one of the key infrastructure projects for our whole city. It's not just great for London either. Apparently it's great for Goole too. Goole? Yorkshire? So that's where the Piccadilly line trains are currently being made. The factory that will build the new Bakerloo line trains should be that factory in Goole. It'll protect 700 jobs in Yorkshire as well, plus the supply chain. But it is a project that will deliver homes and jobs, and we are absolutely collaborating with councils across our city, with the GLA, with Transport for London. And I would say it's a project where the signals are now green, and it's just time that the government got on board as well.
I have no other indication from any other member wishing to speak. We will now move to the, actually, no, I shall now call on Councillor Richard Livingstone to reply. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Formally, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Livingstone, please. Okay, if you can leave quietly, please. Okay, thank you. Okay. Please, if you can leave quietly. You're so sorry, you're not here to address the meeting. Okay, I'll call for a 5 minutes recess, all members. I'll call for a 5 minutes recess, please, for all members. Thank you very much. Thank you.